Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Dave Thompson, and I'd like to welcome you back to our Civil Human Bible study. So today I'm working through the book of Matthew. We're continuing that Bible study. I'm a civil human minister. So what that means is that I focus on my ministry of bringing human peace and common ground. And so those are the things that I'm really working on. And as I approach this Bible study today, I'm going to do so with two objectives. First, I want to be human, and so I'm approaching these scriptures just as a human being and looking for those teachings that I feel can be taken from here, the 2,000 years ago, and applied to today across the board for any human being. And the second thing is that I want to do that civilly, meaning I want to respect our basic shared human needs. Needs to believe what we want to about our creed, our need to be independent from the control of others and intimidation, our need to vote for those who will have control over us, our need to intimately love the person of our own choosing, and our need to live our life the way that we want to. We are continuing today in the book of Matthew, and this is chapter 12, and let's go ahead and jump into this. So yesterday, we talked about Jesus' disciples getting caught breaking the law, and the Pharisees, who are the teachers of the law, were reprimanding them. Today, we're going to see Jesus himself being accused of breaking the law. So let's go ahead and continue reading in Matthew chapter 12, verse 19 through 14. Or starting in verse 9. Now when he had departed from there, he went into their synagogue. And behold, there was a man who had a withered hand. And they asked him, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? That they might accuse him. Then he said to them, What man is there among you who has, if he has one sheep, and if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will he not lay hold of it and lift it up? Of how much more value then is a man than his sheep? Therefore it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Then he said to the man, Stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out, and it was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and took counsel against him, how they might destroy him. So I want to jump into the verses themselves and talk a little bit about some of the cultural aspects that'll help us understand what in the world's going on here, why these people called the Pharisees are attacking Jesus, what it is that Jesus is doing that is causing them to be distraught or to be upset, and then how we deal with those situations is a significant issue even today. So starting in verse 9, we have this context of Jesus going to a synagogue. And a synagogue, remember, is like a modern day church. And for those who are Jewish or come from a Jewish background, it's still called a synagogue. But for those from other faiths, a Buddhist, it might be a temple. For those of Islam, it might be a mosque. And so there are a number of different expressions of that, but it's basically where we get together to learn about our faith and to have community with those who agree with us. So Jesus purposely goes to the synagogue. And one interesting thing about this passage is it says their synagogue. And so remember, Jesus has just been attacked by these religious leaders. It seems like he's going to their actual church or their synagogue to do more things, to talk to the people there, and it's going to appear he's healing somebody on the Sabbath. So the second thing, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but the Sabbath is again based upon a law, one of the 10 commandments early on that the Jewish people were given, and that is you should set apart the seventh day to make it holy or special. And the reason for this is the creation story, the very first part of the Bible in Genesis. We have God creating the earth in 6 days. It's often translated days, but really it just means ages or sections of time. So there's 6 sections of time, and on the seventh one, God rests. And so there's this education and this motif and this idea that is communicated as a culture that there's one day out of every week that we should set aside to rest. I love that concept and try to employ that as much as possible. It's tough in our society to do that when we're asked to work every single day, when we have light and can work through the dark. You know, we don't have those social norms that we used to where the weekend was not a working time. Anyway, on that note, I do want to just quickly say, find a day to rest if you can. So jumping back into, and thank you for allowing me to go down my little bunny trail there. So now we have these Pharisees who, it says, were looking for ways to make charges against Jesus. And this term here, to make charges, it really means to set him up for a violation of their legal system. So they're looking for a way to press charges against Jesus in their culture. And in their culture, they have a very rigorous set of rules about this Sabbath day's rest. And if you do any work on it, if you walk a certain distance, if you farm or do any harvesting, whatever it is, you're not allowed to do any work, because Sunday, the Sabbath, is supposed to be a day of rest. And so here's Jesus going to a synagogue in front of everybody, including these Pharisees. And the Pharisees ask him, is it good to heal on the Sabbath? And pointing to this man, for instance, who has what appears to be a withered hand. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but the idea is that it is no longer functional. So the Pharisees asked Jesus this question. Like, Jesus understands that this is a setup. He knows that these Pharisees are trying to get him to do something that they can press charges against. And what happens when they do that? They can discredit Jesus. They can say that he's a criminal. They can bring him before the high council of their Pharisees, the religious leaders, and bring all kinds of charges against him. They don't like Jesus because Jesus goes directly to the people and ministers to the people. He doesn't go through all of the religion, all of the high church, all of those people who had spent their whole lives working to be a part of this system and earning all these degrees and these accolades. Jesus just doesn't care. He sets all of that aside and goes and ministers directly to the people and teaches them himself, even though he hasn't gone through all of these requirements of the system. This is upsetting to them. They've spent their whole life doing this. They've spent their whole life getting degrees, getting in positions of power. So it's understandable that they feel some injustice because Jesus didn't do any of that. He's just going out and everybody loves him and nobody loves the Pharisees. So you can understand that there's a lot of animosity here. And so these Pharisees are looking for any chance that they have to bring charges and destroy Jesus' ministry so that he doesn't destroy them. So the next thing I want to talk about is the next couple of verses. Jesus starts to defend himself, and he uses this common sense argument. And I love this about Jesus. He's this person who never brings legal argumentations. He simply uses common sense, things that everybody in the world, no matter of who they are, can understand. And so he uses a simple analogy, and that is, look, if any of you have a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, on this day you're supposed to not do any work, are you going to leave it there to die? No, of course not, because you're going to get your sheep and bring it out of the pit. There are times when we, regardless of everything that we have tried to do, regardless of all of our efforts to do what's right, sometimes things get messy. Sometimes life throws us a curveball. And so Jesus is saying, look, when that happens, sometimes it's not always easy or possible to uphold the perfection of these rules. But Jesus points out, look, if you're going to save a sheep, why in the world would you be upset about me healing a person and reaching out? And so then Jesus says, he tells the guy, reach out, stretch out your hand, which is a bit of a bold thing to do because the man's hand is withered. But the man, because he believes that Jesus can heal him, stretches out his hand, and his hand is restored in front of everybody. And then the people are super excited about what has just happened, and the Pharisees are really upset. They go to a place, and it says that they form a council. This council, the phrase that's used here in the Greek, really means like a war room. It's an official capacity, like a board meeting. This official thing where the elders of the religious leaders are getting together to postulate and to create a way to destroy. And this word destroy can also mean to kill, to basically eliminate Jesus as a person of influence. I want to read to you my quick translation on this, and then I want to jump to a couple of walkaway points that I felt sort of jump out of the text to me and that I feel are really useful today in dealing with these kinds of people and these situations. So here's first my translation of the text, trying to do so in a way that provides a translation that's usable by every human being, regardless of their faith. Having left, Jesus now went into the synagogue of the Pharisees, who were accusing the disciples. There was a man there with a withered hand. The Pharisees, who were trying to prosecute Jesus, asked him, "Is it legal to heal somebody on the Sabbath?" He replied, "If any of you has a sheep that falls into a ditch on Sunday, wouldn't you reach down and pull him up? How much more value is a human being than a sheep? Of course it's legal to do good on the Sabbath." Then Jesus said to the handicapped person, "Stretch out your hand." The person reached out, and it was restored just as well as the other. The Pharisees left and held a council together so they could plan how to destroy Jesus. In closing, I want to talk about something that is an ongoing frustration in all of our lives at one time or another. Sometimes when we try to do good things, sometimes when we are standing up against injustice, people don't like it. And we've talked about this before, but some individuals are more concerned about their own place and their own position and the way that it's going to affect them, the way that they're going to look in front of others, and maybe a diminishment of their importance. Regardless, they will, and there always will be somebody, try to demolish us. They will make efforts that are very, very intelligent, savvy. They're going to sit together in a war room to try to destroy us. That's part of doing good. And I'm embarrassed to say, I know in my life that I've been on that side before. There have been times when I've missed the forest for the trees. When somebody is trying to do something good, and even though I know it's good, it's not being done the right way, or it's not being done in the manner that I think it should be done, sometimes I've had to come to a place of recognizing that I need to let it go. The things that I think are important don't matter. What matters is something good is being done. What matters is that somebody's suffering is being alleviated. Last, I want to just point out something that seems pretty obvious, but today, here and now, in our political climate, in our religious and social climate, sometimes we have to do what's right, even if it goes against our culture and against the expectations of our community. We may need to break certain social rules, certain customs. We may need to step outside of our comfort zone and make other people uncomfortable. Sometimes somebody has to stand up, and a lot of times that has to be us, because no one else is going to, because it's much easier to just be comfortable. And I want to encourage you today, if you are going through a time where you're having difficulty with somebody standing up to protest or to do good, to give them some leniency, give them a long leash, and allow them to do what's right in their eyes. It may not look the way that we want it to, but I want to encourage you, as I'm trying to as well, to look for the good and what's being helped in society, rather than the things and the way that people do them. And last, I just want to leave you with an encouragement. As we move forward in these crazy times, it doesn't take much sometimes to brighten somebody's day. Sometimes doing something good means giving them a mask if they don't have one and they need to get to the store. Sometimes it means telling somebody they look handsome or pretty. Sometimes it just means giving somebody a hug. But whatever it is, I would like to encourage you to try to do something that is good for somebody, something that makes them feel better. I want to thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that you're joining me in this journey as I myself am trying to study these scriptures and to learn a lot and to develop as a person, as a human being. I hope that we can continue to provide comments and reflection and education to one another, please leave your comments in below this video. Please contribute your ideas, or if you feel that it's not being clear, or if you have other ideas, just put it in there. It's part of our community of growth. And until tomorrow, live at noon on Facebook, I want to say to you that I love you. And I hope that you choose to love yourself. It's the only love in this world that we have any control over. And now I invite you to join me as we go about the rest of our day, loving our neighbors the same way. Thank you.